Welcome back. Former state legislator Jim Carlin is here to talk about his campaign for U.S. Senate. Thanks so much for being here.
Sure. Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you used to be in the Iowa House and in the Iowa Senate,
right.
and you also ran before for U.S. Senate. So what makes this time different? What are you hoping to achieve?
Well, a lot of the issues are the same, but right now there's a feeling, and I think a lot of people have it, that they're working harder and harder and harder, and they're just having a tougher time getting ahead. And I think a lot of that can be put on squarely on the shoulders of the government and how things are done.
Let's talk about the agriculture economy. A lot of Iowa farmers are facing difficulties, things like high input cost and uncertain markets. What are some policies that you would support to help them?
Well, honestly, I think a free market approach. So on the input side and on the market side of what they do, they really don't have a voice. And the problem with that is they basically become contract labor. They're kind of at the mercy of it, and free markets is a good way to restore their voice in the marketplace.
Yeah. Do you think maybe you'll come after the monopolies that are into some of the products that farmers need?
I think that's exactly it. President Trump has actually talked about engaging some of the foreign monopolies that have so much control over the meat sector of agriculture, and those things need to be done. We have antitrust laws for a reason. We have deregulation for a reason. I don't think the federal government needs to micromanage meat packing in the state of Iowa. We should be allowed to sell our stuff across state lines without so much oversight that makes it too hard to get a foot in the door.
What do you think about the tariffs that farmers are facing? Are you supportive of the president's tariffs?
I am, because it's a long game, and this is short. It's a short pain for a long gain, and I do think that the tariffs ultimately are gonna work, because if they're charging us the same tariffs and we simply charge the same tariffs, just as a matter of fairness, the American farmers need to be treated more fairly when they're selling their corn and their grain overseas, and they're not getting a fair shake. And it is, as I said, short-term pain for long-term gain.
So I wanted to also ask you, on your campaign website, you write that you won't support endless wars. What do you think are endless wars, and do you support the war in Iran?
We saw an endless war with Iraq. We saw an endless war with Vietnam. We saw an endless war in Afghanistan. When you have massive troop deployments and trillions of dollars being spent, what did we gain? I still don't know how U.S. interests were advanced. Iran is a different story. We do know they had enriched uranium by their own admission. We do know they have ballistic missile technology. So the threat there is very different. This is not another Iraq story. President Trump's strategy of blockade, back channels negotiations with other nations, which he's doing right now, he's doing it in China. I think it's ultimately going to work, because their entire economy subsists on oil, and at some point they're going to have to yield.
On the issue of affordability, Iowans are seeing bigger costs at the pump. They're also seeing bigger costs in grocery stores. What do you think are policies that could be enforced to help Iowans at this time?
Well, so right now, people need to remember, President Trump was the guy who got the price of gas so low. He's the same guy. I think his long-term objective in dealing with Iran is legitimately interested in the threat that it represents. But I also think it's going to carry over into lower gas prices, very honestly, and then lower grocery costs because of the lower gas prices.
So you describe yourself as an America First candidate. On the issue of immigration, do you support the president's policies here? I do.
We saw 20 million illegal aliens come across our borders. We spent over $100 billion. Actually, Henson voted for $127 billion to defend the borders of the Ukraine, when our own borders are being overrun by 20 million illegal aliens. 60% of those illegal aliens are estimated to receive some form of government assistance. We do need to finish the wall and defend our borders.
Let's turn to health care. So we know that some rural clinics and hospitals are closing across the state. What do you think are policies that could be enforced to not only help Iowans access health care, but also help them afford health care?
Well, on the access side, we now have technology. Telehealth has so many applications that really haven't had a chance to get out into the marketplace of rural Iowa. You could set up telehealth platforms on Main Street, Iowa, You could staff them with an EMT to provide ambulance, but basic diagnostic workups that you could do remotely on Main Street, Iowa, and literally have access to telehealth meetings. And then on the affordability side, you know, President Obama monopolized healthcare. There's now 5 companies running healthcare. Their profits have gone up 200%. But you know what else has gone up 200%? Our premiums. So is it really about the cost or is it about the greed? Because again, we have this monopoly construct. It's not serving us. I do a little bit of medical malpractice. I can tell you unequivocally that doctors are losing their decision-making authority. We're having claims adjusters practicing medicine without a license. That's not a good thing.
On the issue of medical freedom, that's something that you're campaigning on. What does this look like?
Well, the thing is this. There's a term in the law called informed consent. If you're going to force me to be vaccinated, which we saw during COVID, well, then you need to tell me about the attendant risks associated with it. I don't think we had too much of that. We had a lot of Iowa's healthcare workers that didn't want to be vaccinated. I stood up for them during that whole debate. I wrote legislation to protect them. I'd love to tell you that it passed, but it didn't. But medical freedom is a very important thing, because if somebody can force you to be vaccinated against your will, what other freedoms are there? I mean, that's a pretty serious incursion into your freedom.
On the issue of abortion, you describe yourself as a pro-lifer.
I am.
So the federal government right now, they put this issue onto the states. Do you think that's a fine policy, or would you support legislation that perhaps puts a national ban on abortions or anything like that?
I wouldn't have an objection to a national law on abortion. I actually talked a woman out of an abortion back in 2001. That she decided to have the baby, give the baby up for adoption. That child's now 24 years old and part of a family. And you know, we need to look at the big picture of what abortion's done. 68 million people have been aborted, and the implications of that economically, socially, the costs really have not been looked at. And so I would be open to that.
Fiscal sanity is also an issue that you have listed on your campaign. What do you want to see that's different in Congress right now that's not there?
Sure. Well, we need to remember that inflation is a tax on everybody. So if we don't balance a budget, everybody gets taxed more. Right now, I think corporations have too much control of the politicians. 70% of Ashley Hinson's money comes from outside the state of Iowa. The biggest donor of taking away private property rights of Iowa's farmers was one of her biggest donors. So we need to see the connection between the donors, because we think we're electing candidates. In reality, we're electing donors. I think that's a big reason why we're $39 trillion in debt. But here's the thing. We cannot live by running up debt on our children's future. We have to stick up for their American dream on housing, on health care, on higher education, because right now their road is a lot harder than ours was.
Your opponent, Ashley Hinson, she was endorsed by President Donald Trump. Do you feel like that's a hinder to your campaign? Is that a challenge for you?
Oh, it's definitely a challenge. I would have loved to have had President Trump's endorsement. I think I actually represent his values better. She rallied for Nikki Haley the night before the 2024 caucus. That isn't something I would have done. I understand it, but I also understand political realities. And so when President Trump has to work with John Thune on getting things passed, you know, that's a reality of the process. I accept it. It doesn't bother me. I just have to work it. I just have to overcome it.
And then sex trafficking, or ending sex trafficking, is something that you're campaigning on as well. What policy are you hoping to push forward? Well,
here's the thing. In Iowa, now I wrote legislation to stop sex trafficking in Iowa that would have created the task force. Iowa's third in the nation on our per capita sex trafficking. We're among the worst, which is pretty shocking. Like, this is Iowa. We need to have a real task force type engagement to stop it. It is a real problem here. And when kids are being trafficked, they need to be given priority to protect them and to, frankly, rescue them.
And in about 30 seconds or less, why are you the candidate that voters should vote for in this primary election and not your opponent?
Sure. Well, I would say look at the body of work I did. I exposed elder abuse at the Iowa Veterans Home. The commandant there got fired. I exposed mismanagement of the Iowa Veterans Trust Fund for Veterans in Need. It now makes 10 times as much money. I wrote a senior property tax freeze bill, and I wrote legislation to protect girls in the bathroom and to keep radical gender type ideology out of the classroom. So like, if you look at the work I've done, whether it's fighting for medical freedom or fighting for the private property rights of Iowa's farmers, it speaks to the kind of representation they're going to get from me in Washington. I'm going to represent them and not corporate special interests.
Former state legislator Jim Carlin, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks again for having me.
Yeah, we'll be right back.